All right, so let's get it started. Hello, Julia. Hello, Eric.
Hey everyone.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks for having us again.
yeah. So I'm Bianca. I have a rental house in Culver City, California. I went to film school back in 2004 to be a cinematographer, and I worked as a cinematographer for about 10 years. And then now I'm a business owner in the cinematography field. I still shoot when I have time, which is not that much. So I love to keep learning. What is great about having a rental house is that I've been meeting more and more cinematographers every day, and I learn so much from them. Um, and Julia is one of them. Julia, I met you last year, but I feel like I don't know that much about your story as a cinematographer. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey and how did you get involved into cinematography?
Yeah, I haven't really done anything else. I went to undergrad to study production. I'd always been making dumb little movies as a kid with my dad's camera, like the cliche story, I guess. And when I went to school for production, I'm from San Diego, so I went to school there. I worked in news, which is really big in San Diego as well, which made me a really good operator. I was like shooting sports and going out and doing events and stories and all kinds of things and producing them and editing them. And it was a really good exercise. And I was making money doing what I wanted to do, to some degree, not necessarily news anymore, but it was really good practice in the field. And it also gave me sort of like a doc background. Like I am very good at improvising and like, um, communicating with the public and, making myself feel, or seem welcome in groups of people and like trying to capture, genuine moments in that way. And then I went to UCLA for grad school in cinematography specifically. And yeah, I graduated a few years ago. And now I'm a full-time DP and I have the best job in the world.
Great. And how I love our UCLA people. I think it's probably a great program because everyone I meet from there, it's really great attitude and skills. So you've been out of film school for what? How many years now exactly?
Almost 5.
5. Great.
Yeah.
And do you remember what was the first job you got like right out of film school that you remember that was remarkable?
Right when I graduated UCLA, I shot 2 features. They were unpaid though. I mean, they were my first features. One was a thesis film and the other one was an actual indie film. I shot a lot of like tiny music videos. And yeah, I didn't get into commercials until like 2018, or like bigger features until later. But I started to build momentum with tinier stuff, and I'm really lucky. I feel like I've done a ton of narrative, which I hear a lot of DPs complain about not getting enough narrative. But I stuck with that, and that is where my heart is ultimately, and I've been fortunate to do a lot of it. So.
Well, it's probably the universe giving it back to you because you did those 2 free jobs right out of film
Sure.
school, which I mean doing 2 features.
I don't think it's quite given back yet, but sure.
It's on the track.
Yeah, totally.
So that's good to know. So you're more focused on narrative, but you still do some music videos and some commercials.
Yeah, the past year's been really exciting. I feel like I have built a really exciting career in all 3. Like I have narrative, we had a South by film. I know South by got canceled, but which was like my 6th feature. And I did a ton of commercials and got to travel last year. And then I'm also doing a lot of exciting music videos. So I feel like, and which is great, that's like one of the best parts of our job is it's different every project. And, no one day is the same.
Yeah.
So I like having all of those things.
Nice.
Julia, what are your thoughts on shooting narrative in full frame, which is certainly becoming a thing these days?
Yeah, I haven't done it. I want to do it. I think it's, from what I've seen, everything's really beautiful, and I think, it if when I start to do that more, it's going to be like a little bit of a change in terms of like how I think and how I frame and the glass that we use and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I want to do it, and I think what I've seen is exciting. And but I do think, you know, a ton is not full frame yet, so there's no like impending concerns or like on my mind or anything.
Yeah, it's definitely a new world.
I asked because a number of DPs were concerned about the extremely shallow depth of field in shooting rather than Super 35 full frame, but it doesn't seem to have really impacted the workflow that much. People have come to work with it. So.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, I'm educating myself on workflow, and I'm able to tell production like what does it mean if we want to shoot full frame. You know, if the director wants that look, like from a production standpoint, how much money difference is it? You know, what kind of crew do we need? What equipment do we need? So I'm definitely preparing for that and have done some tests. And I don't know, I mean, a lot of us shoot wide open on Anamoprhic. So, you know, I think there's like, you know, we've trained for that. So I don't know, I'm not worried about it. I think it's a look like anything else. Parasite's an example that wasn't shallow and totally worked and was beautiful. So I don't know, I think it's a choice, and I think it's beautiful, and our first ACs are killer. And
yeah. With all of these new choices available, these new tools to filmmakers, where do you see the industry going in terms of technology in the future? You know, I heard you mention full frame. I heard you mention anamorphic. I'm sure 3D's around the corner again, if they ever release the new Avatar films.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure what my prediction is. I think, you know, old tools are still beloved, and like I still shoot a lot of celluloid too. And I frankly think it will always be around. And just like I think Super 35 will always be around for digital. And I don't know, I just think it's more of a tool expansion, you know, in terms of what you can use rather than like, and I'm sure there will be trends, you know, everyone's going to want to shoot large format and all these things, but I don't know. I also work with a lot of wonderful directors who have opinions on these things. It's not just my own, like, let's try this for this project. You know, I have people who love, like I have a director who only wants to shoot film. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it's good though to have directors that, I mean, there's both ways, right? Like, but I do feel a lot of times that the directors don't know their lenses as much. Of course, there are some that, but yeah, just in general, BCine, we try to do the events also for the directors, because a lot of times, you know, you have that director that he's married to that one lens that he used once and then he loves it, and then he doesn't really let his DP tries a lot of other things.
Right. Yeah, I think we'll have to continue educating ourselves, and you know, and that's another part of a fun part of our job as cinematographers, is like going to these events and really learning the tools and experimenting on our own. And I also think, you know, throughout your whole career, you're always going to be doing passion projects where you try things too, and like, you know, you go out and kind of test these things, and you have some story where it fits. And so yeah, I think we're just, you know, it's kind of that same trajectory of like going to these things and like educating ourselves as to what these tools are, and we'll rise to the challenge when production wants a specific tool or camera or format.
Sorry guys, my kid just came into the room. Okay, he's out. Yeah, there's definitely many different options out there these days. Julia, we were gonna focus a bit on anamorphics, right? Because you had a lot of projects that shot anamorphic these last months, say, and then one of them is the Quincy music video. Quinn.
92.
Quinn. So Julia's gonna show us some frames, and then we're gonna talk a bit about what the lens is doing, and we'll go from there. Want to share your screen?
Yeah. Cool. So this is just kind of like a PDF that I put together. Yeah, from Quinn's video, and I think the thinking behind this one. This is on the Cooke SF anamorphic lenses. We used the 40, the 75, and the 100, and the link is in the chat if you want to watch it in motion. And I think we still have our wonderful Steadicam operator James, and my gaffer Tom is here as well, who lit this for me. And yeah, we did this all in a day. We shot on the SFs because we needed something that rendered color very beautifully. This is a story about this boy who's kind of infatuated with this girl who lives next door. So it's a story about two different worlds, and we felt like anamorphic and distance made anamorphic right for this, and really, seeing the world and the two worlds up against each other. The director, Blythe Thomas, is wonderful and a dear friend of mine, and she has opinions on lenses. We never use the same lenses really for projects. We always have really intentional reasons as to why we choose what we choose. A lot of her references for this were like old films from like the 90s, the 80s, and the early 2000s. So we knew we were going to kind of mute the color in the narrative storyline. And then for Quinn's performance, you'll see that the color is retained a little more in terms of what the SFs captured. SF stands for special flare, for those who haven't used them yet. And I love them because, the flares are also really beautiful, and they're bolder than what some of the other Cooke anamorphic lenses do, but they're not like overpowering. And there's other lenses I've shot with that capture flares really like saturated, and they look kind of artificial in terms of color, but I feel like the SF lenses are this good mix of, they're very sophisticated. They don't have any crazy distortion, so I can use them for bigger commercial projects, but at the same time, they capture a really beautiful texture and color and have character to them. So they're this good kind of like in between, very beautiful glass. So this is kind of the first still is the intro to the video where you can kind of see highlights and things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll let people ask questions if they want to ask about.
It's interesting that, even though, because, lens, especially Cooke anamorphics are, they're not cheap lenses, but you knew you didn't really have a big budget, but you knew exactly what focal lengths you needed. So you were able to actually, shoot with amazing lenses because you knew what you wanted. So you only got 3 lenses, right? So with that, it also helps the rental house to, if you only have a certain budget and you do your pre-production, you can plan and just choose a couple focal lengths that you need and then to get the look. So I think that's really smart. And you're also committing, to your decisions, right? You're like, okay, I'm going to use these 3 lenses, and that shows that the pre-production was done very well.
Yeah, and aside from budget too, I feel like it's so versatile when you're an anamorphic. I can get gorgeous wides, but then I can go in, on the Steadicam and be closer and have that, the depth of field that I want or whatever, or the lack of depth of field. So I think, in all the things I've shot with the SFs, I feel like I love all the focal lengths, but sometimes I don't need every focal length because they just do so much. And, there's other projects I'll show that we did the 65 millimeter macro on. There's just so many things you can do, which is really great.
So the first shot with the car, that's the 40, the wide.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, which you can see, you can see the curb kind of bending a little bit. But the 40 is kind of a great, 40 or the 50 is a great standard wide for me. I feel totally comfortable with the 40, and it's not, it's anamorphic, but it's not, crazy distortion.
Yeah, the 25, it's big.
Yeah.
Let's see the next one.
Yeah.
Compare.
So these are, in his room, there's some night at the top and then some daytime in the bottom. And this is all in a day. So it's like, you have to be able to, in music videos, I'm always having to shoot like nonstop and I have to see everything. So you have to really make it kind of like the space and be able to explore with the lenses.
Yeah.
And I'm very positive I shot wide open. But even this, like, I think these are both the 40. Just like getting closer to him, right? Like over his shoulder.
Wait, we're seeing still the first one.
Oh, you're seeing the first one?
Yeah.
We're seeing the Land Rover and then the split screen with the two people on the couch.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Are you seeing the second one, Julia? We're just seeing still the first one.
No.
Are you frozen? Good.
I'm clicking resume share, but is it not doing anything? Hang on, let me try this again.
Okay. Nice.
Now do you see it?
Yes, great.
Okay.
There it goes. That's the second.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this is still the 40. We're just deeper in the room, you know, and you can kind of tell he's not super soft in the foreground on the bottom. So, you know, still on that lens, we're able to go in and like get mediums and things, you know, and move through the space.
Yeah, very versatile. Great. I love this look. It feels very natural. I'm sure there were lights, but it looks very natural. Good job, Gaffer and Julia.
It's Tom. If he's still here, maybe he bounced.
Yeah. What else? Do we have more from this music video? Yeah, so that's the artist. Oh, I love this top shot. I don't know what it is about it, but it's so simple, but I love it.
Yeah, so this one, again, it's the 40, and you can tell if you look at the window. We're just, you know, next to him on the desk. And yeah, and then, you know, you notice if you look at Quinn below, he's got more of the color is not as desaturated for his, just to differentiate the looks.
Do you remember the T-stop on the bottom one with the artist? Just curiosity, like, because the background is not super shallow, but it's a little shallow. Just curious.
I want to say it's the 40 wide open because this whole performance was shot sort of in a rush as the sun was setting. So I'm pretty sure we just stuck on the 40 and did wide open. And I actually did up to supplement a key light as it was getting darker. That was really soft, super soft and natural.
Good then.
But that's what you see in his eyes.
Yeah, it looks nice. Very nice. Someone raised a hand. Let me see. Where are you? Q&A, not the Q&A. Someone had raised a hand. I'm looking at the webinar chat. No. The raised hands are not here.
I wish I had BTS. I never have good BTS.
If someone has a question, please ask on the Q&A box, okay? On the webinar chat. Sorry, that's what I mean. Do we have any other ones from this particular project or no? The next one, the next photos are already from Eulogy.
Yeah, the next ones are, oh, you know what? No, I included a couple more.
You can see the flare.
Yeah, but you should watch the link because you'll see what he's doing is like throwing the basketball and the flare like passes through a little bit and like teases the top of the frame. Mm-hmm. And you can really, you know, this is obviously like sort of soft because he's in motion, but you can really get a feel for the flare in the motion. Yeah, and then the overhead.
Yeah, I love the color of this flare, and it's not, you know, I feel like you can get with the special flares, you can get like Star Trek-y, but you also can get this more like soft.
Yeah.
And the color, I love it. It's great.
Those Star Trek guys are often using a streak filter to really exacerbate that flare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no filtration in the camera on this one.
is this the flare coming from the wind? Like, was there an HMI outside? Or
Yeah, I think it's a 4K.
Yeah. Good.
Which you can't tell because the window is just about gone, which is fine. It totally works.
Yeah, it totally works. It's great.
So the next one, I believe, is from Eulogy, which is that second link that I sent, which if we want to move on to that, this is just the coverage. This is a short that my buddy Ryan Zhao directed, and we just had the 40 and the 65 on this movie. So the whole movie is just on those two, and it's mostly the 40 probably.
It looks really nice. Yeah, I just saw the.
Oh, that's a really short set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, if you plan, you can make it happen. Like, and I mean, that's like being creative, and I mean, it's good for you, Julia, that you can do that, you know, because I think some people would be afraid to do that. So it's good for you.
I oftentimes see people going out with just a handful of anamorphics for various reasons. You know, it's a format that really lends itself to shooting with just a few lenses if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel, you know, when I do this, it doesn't feel restrictive at all. Like for this one, you know, it's in a tiny apartment and I don't need a long anamorphic lens. Like I'm going to be fine. I have the macro, I have diopters, whatever. Like I don't need a bunch of different paintbrushes for this kind of thing.
I forgot to ask on the music video, did you use any filters at all?
No.
No. Just straight
I tend not to unless it's like, you know, we prep it and it's a specific reason.
Yeah. Yeah, you tend to use more diopters, I feel like, than like effect filters.
Yeah.
Whose diopters do you use with the Cooke lenses?
Whose diopters?
Yeah.
I don't know, Bianca, whose diopters do we use?
Schneider?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, the Schneider diopters, Eric.
We just get questions a lot as to whose such and such should I match with your lenses? And there's so many new tools out there that I tend to gravitate towards what I know. And I'm just sort of wondering if there's any cool new stuff out there that I should have my eyes open for.
Yeah, there's a lot of split diopters now, and we have some at the shop that we've been trying to test. It's just now, maybe we can do that at home. Test like letterbox diopters. And
you're at the office. Can you just go back and grab? We'll show like a.
I'm virtually there, everyone, but my heart is there in the office. But everyone, this is very interesting because if you were here on the other weeks, like when we were talking to Marianne, like she goes very heavy on filters, you know, and Julia doesn't. So I'm just saying because it's important to know that, you know, this is an art, and cinematography, you can really choose what you like and experiment with it, and there's no right or wrong. So this is very important.
I think all of Marianne's choices though are like super fitting for what she does, and like she makes it so beautiful. So yeah, I think you can, and I probably could have if I wanted to on one of these. Yeah, it's all, you have so many choices and you can do so many different things. And
Julia, we have one question here that, what does the Cooke look mean to you and your work? Cooke question.
What does the Cooke look mean? Well, frankly, I think it depends on which set of Cookes.
Yeah.
And I think at this point in my, you know, what I've used, I've mostly used the SFs, and I would say it means like very sophisticated, but also it's just so organic and not like, these aren't sterile, boring lenses. But they're also, they don't have, you know, aberrations and distortions where it's like, you know, they're not super quirky where it's like super artsy and work for something that's, you know, higher end or it's delivered to a client. I think it's this perfect mix to me. I was thinking about this a little bit, and I was like, I think the word I would attribute to the SFs are like human. They're just very like, they photograph faces so well, and they're just so authentic, and they don't, I hate lenses that are just so sterile and crisp, and because frankly to me that's really boring. I need to feel some sort of texture, and I feel like I've tested enough to know that these are really right for a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, they're beautiful. What else? Right, it's like, I mean, you can see here, like this is a very simple setup you have in a way, and of course it's a bit pixelated here, but I hope everyone sees the links, because yeah, the images just really speak for themselves, right? And elegant, very elegant. Let's see, we got a question from Ingrid, fellow UCLA and BC pup. Ingrid, I miss you.
It's awesome.
The shadows of the white and blue flowers look so soft and creamy almost, but they seem pretty close to the wall. How did you achieve that? That's a good question.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Also, just note that there, there's a split between, so because it almost looks like they're together, the two images,
Yeah.
but they're
We have some shadows here. Yeah.
I want to say, I mean,
Someone asked about the cameras you're matching these.
Sorry, what was that, Eric?
Someone's asking about the cameras that you were shooting with the Cookes.
Oh, this one and Stacy was the mini.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of flower shadows, everything outside was diffused.
So probably that. I mean, do you go double diff a lot?
Oh, I go like triple. I go so hard on the diff. I joke that like triple muslin is like my favorite.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's through there's a window, so I think the window also maybe did some stuff. We did some rain effects on the windows. The ones where they're looking straight in camera, if in motion, you'll see the water pattern on the back. So I think there's like heavy diffusion out there.
Nice. How did you go about the rain? The rain like just drops?
They hooked up like a frame of pipe that had holes alongside of it, and they put it against the window essentially.
Nice.
Water down.
That's beautiful. Yeah, guys, check it out. Like you can see the shadows of the rain coming down her face, and it's very nice. Let's see what else here on these frames. Do we have more frames from Eulogy?
I don't think so. Not on this.
Okay. So I'm gonna get us out of this so we can continue to answer the questions. So let's see. Valentin, what's better, adding filters on the front or on the back of the lens through adapters? Which one is technically cleaner? Do you ever use filters on the back, Julia, or mostly in the front?
Mostly in the front, and on the back, it's been a while since I've done that.
Yeah. Do you have any input on this question, Eric? Like coming from working in many, for many years in the industry.
It's almost a trick question. It has its roots in the Panavision film days, I believe, where you could actually put a filter in the gate of the camera. And that led to putting diffusion behind the lens, which is often net stocking or something like that. People used glue to affix that, which manufacturers don't really recommend. It's part of the reason that all of these multi-stage matte boxes were invented. Everybody kind of gravitated towards just putting filters on the front. The big drawback with that is there can be internal reflections between the glass. You have to tilt one of the filters just ever so slightly to get rid of those internal reflections.
Yeah, I mean, there's now, it's coming back. I feel like the filter in the back, there's some manufacturers working on that. We'll see how it all goes.
There are some lenses out now that they made a net filter with magnets, which is actually pretty neat.
Yeah,
But I think a lot of that has its roots in those old film days.
yeah. Would be interesting to see. But I mean, from a rental house standpoint, I definitely see way more filtration in the front, Valentine, rather there than in the back. Let's see who else. Julia, do you rely more on the aesthetics of the lenses, or do you create LUTs and assure proper color correction in post? That's
I do both. I always have a LUT that I've built. It's funny, I think like a year and a half ago, I was like, I just use like the standard LUT or whatever. Like I didn't really like explore, and now I'm like building them, and like I really love them. Or my colorists will build the LUT for the show. So yeah, I do both, I think. And I always try to keep post, I always send the LUT with the drive, and I always use that as a starting point. And I'm a big believer in like getting stuff right on the day. But also like as you go, you're always making mental notes of like, bring that down a little bit or whatever. Like, you know what you're going to want to do later in color. But yeah, I think both the lenses and the LUTs for me are very intentional in terms of the project. So I think it's a combo.
Yeah, it's good to be prepared, right?
And if anybody wants some LUTs, I'm happy to share some I've collected and made.
Fun. James is asking, how did you choose only those two focal lengths, the 40 and the 65? Was that in prep and by looking through an app like Artemis? Do you use Artemis or do you use something else?
I did not scout that movie physically. I don't remember if we did Artemis. They might have gotten some Artemis for me to get an idea of like what I would be safe with. But I think one of the choices with those two focal lengths was because it was a small space, first of all, was one of the practical reasons to stick with two sort of wider ones. And just knowing that, a lot of the references were wide shots, and I knew I'd have to do a lot of handheld following the girl, and being slightly wider on that makes it a little easier and smoother.
And from your previous experience with the music video too, you probably knew, the 40 worked so well, right? Like once you do that in one film, then in the next one you
can trust them.
Sure, and you can trust your choices.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, and the music video, the 75, this one at the 65, because I knew I may need to get much closer, and like they're sitting across a table for a lot of the film in different pieces of coverage. So knowing that I'd have to clock around each woman and like get closer, and just having that flexibility to have the close focus, which I think is like 5 or something. And I'm sure I had a diopter just in case, but I don't think I ended up using them.
Yeah, I think you did have a diopter, and then because you were like, I don't know, just to be safe. Yeah, it's good. Good to be safe. So it comes with experience, guys. Like, yeah, if you use a lens that you know that you can do a wide and a medium, and you just, right, you keep using it for the other projects, and that's very good.
And it's also like I'm shooting anamorphic, so I don't need 100 mil for a close-up. I'm still going to have shallow depth of field on my 65 if I'm on someone's face and I'm closer. You know what I mean? So like I don't need, for this, I didn't need like a bunch of different longer versions.
The 300 is back in the shop, so the 300 Cooke SF, Julia, for your next project.
The whole movie, which is the 300.
The big guy. So from the Cooke family, you pretty much you've used a lot of the S4s, right?
Lots of S4s. I love the S4s on film. I just love that look as well on digital. I've used the Pancros.
Yeah.
The classic anamorphic eyes. I haven't used the S7s, but I know we've talked about them and I want to use them for something.
Your next full frame project.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I think for you should use them with a full frame camera for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
If not, they tend to be a bit that sharp, just because the nature of the beast. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. What do you think?
Yeah.
Go out with the mini LF. Julia, tomorrow in your driveway, there will be a mini LF and an S7.
Don't lie to me.
Yeah, we can do that. We'll talk about it later.
Okay. I will totally go shoot something if you do that.
No, we need, I am a bit worried about, the cameras not being used and all that.
Right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's normal, the cameras don't go out every day, but like they're normally working, and now they're not. So it is a bit concerning.
Yeah.
Oh, Ingrid wants to come with. No, guys, we can't have a crew yet. People want to crew.
You have to just pull wirelessly and be like 10 feet back from and you can't build the camera.
Yeah. And Julia, talking about a bit about being a cinematographer in times of this pandemic, right? So you're coming from being super busy, shooting and prepping, to being home. Like, what do you do on a normal day, like to try and keep, active as a cinematographer?
Well, I am watching and consuming as much film and art as possible. I shot a music video on Zoom, which I can't really talk about, but I did a project the other day and got to flex DP muscles, which was great. I'm still prepping a lot of stuff, which is great. I'm interviewing, I'm making decks. I've made so many decks over the quarantine, which is really great, and pulling references, and we've had many virtual interviews. Of course, no one can book you quite yet because they don't know when they're going to go. And I feel like it's going to be interesting when we go back to work, because I don't know what will get booked first. And I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, if they book you on several things, who gets to, who's going to jump in production really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I'm having table reads and like a bunch of virtual meetings and like zoomed out.
Zoomed out, I know. And then when the weekend comes, I'm like, okay, now it's a break from Zoom.
Yeah.
That's what the weekend.
No, I mean, well, I've had many things on the weekends too. I feel like I don't even know what day it is. I keep thinking it's one day, and it's not that day anymore.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's really interesting.
They're just days. They're all the same day.
This is all one big day, basically.
What do you think that production is going to look like, Julia, when this does start up again?
I think it's going to be, I think social distancing will still be in place to some degree. Like on set, we'll just have to be minimal crews. We're going to have to wear masks and gloves. We're going to have to, I don't know. I think, crowd scenes. I was reading an article, I know Denmark and Switzerland or something went back in production, but they didn't really get hit too hard, I think the article said. So they were going back, and they can't do crowd scenes or anything like that. I think one of my concerns is like, being close to the actors, and the actors who can't protect themselves and have to do the scene, and don't have a mask on and have to interact with people, or, what does that look like? Yeah. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of safety things in place, and we're going to have to be more cautious than we've been. And I felt it a little bit. I shot this music video also on the Cooke SF, so it's coming out next week. Right before lockdown started. It was one of the last jobs in LA, and we felt a little bit of that concern, and just like getting people out of the house, and it was already starting to like, this thing was starting, and we had to be careful because the lockdown was coming basically a week later.
Yeah, the last week of production already looks different here, from crew to, I don't know, even craft services, right? Like, I mean, now there wouldn't even be the snacks, but I guess the week before everything shut down, like the snacks would come with a hand sanitizer. So like, okay, if you want a snack, you put it in your hands, and
or bring your own.
Yeah.
Bring your own meal, or I don't know.
But let's
need to add a sneeze guard to the craft service table, I guess.
Yeah. Let's talk about good things. I think there's a very fun question here, Julia, for you.
Yes.
What is something you would like to shoot next? Do you have a dream scenario for gear allocation and location setup? Like you could choose
Oh,
a place to go shoot. With what gear would you go and where would it be and what type of
dream scenario. I want to shoot a period piece that's in like the 70s or the 80s right now. I don't know. I want to do that. On large format and with the S7s.
nice.
I don't know. Yeah, I want to do another period piece in that time period. I don't know. That's just
Have you done time period pieces?
I did a Western a while ago. That was fun. It's just fun because you're like immersed in a different world. It's not I'm tired of shooting modern day LA. Like I want to shoot something else or
I love what you said about what you've been doing about getting the how do you call it, a pile of things that are getting inspired, right? Like images. So let's say for these period pieces, so let's say if you want that to be your dream and you are bored at home, you can start researching, right? Like period film, like
totally.
references. I think that was a really good tip for you guys that are at home and are shooters. Just start getting references, right? And like have many folders, like references for the exterior, references, like that's a great time to do that. That's a good tip. Kimisha wants to know, what's your advice for cinematography students?
I would say if you can, be picky about what you do. I think one of the things we all do is sort of like do as much as we can. You know, we want to shoot as much as we can when we're starting and have this huge portfolio, but I feel like, you know, my philosophy has definitely become quality over quantity. So I think if you can be picky and get really invested in what you're doing, I know that it comes with financial, you know, you need to put food on the table, so we can't all be picky right away, right?
Right.
But, you know, just always trying to find things that you're really invested in. I find that I'm much happier now because I'm doing things that I only want to do, you know, and like I'm trying to always be invested in something, and I never want to be on set on something that I can't really get invested in, and then something else comes along and I can't go do that because I promised myself to this. Like you always want to really love what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and that alone will help you focus your portfolio and like do what you want to do and build toward the kind of work that you want to do in the future.
Invest so much time.
Because other DPs get you jobs. I know DPs who are like not friends with other DPs, and I'm like, we're in this together, and we, you know, you help each other grow. So
yeah, and then if you're busy, you can send the job to another DP.
Exactly. Yeah. So as much as we love our directors and we're friends with directors, like surround yourself with nurturing cinematographers too.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point and also tricky because, you know, once you get out of film school, you're like, I was like that. I was just getting every job. And in the long term, it's, you know, if you don't really focus on what type of job do you want to do, then it's not the best scenario, I would say. I see that people have gone further, the people that have focused more, like, oh, I'm going to do narratives, or I'm going to do, and always the narrative people want to do commercials, and the commercial people want to do narratives. But that's just the rule of the world, right?
I also feel like, you know, people who are telling me, oh, I'm not getting the work I want to do, I go look at their website and their website's not focused. There's like every type of job.
Yeah.
You know, there's some really amazing looking things, but then there's like not so good looking things that they, you know, that were the bread and butter jobs. Like quality over quantity, like focus your portfolio. And the more time you spend doing the stuff you don't want to do, you could have been trying to research or learn about the stuff you want to do, or taking a general meeting on like somebody that you want to work with, or, you know, things like that.
Yeah. Focus and people, right? Like getting to work with directors that you like, that you find it inspiring, that will also help bring you up.
Also go test things at VCine and like go to VCine and play with gear and meet Bianca, and if you haven't. And
Yes, testing. Wow,
You
Carlos.
know, there's a big trend of not testing and not doing checkouts
Yeah.
happening. It's been happening for years. What are your feelings on that?
I'm against that big time. I feel like prep and test is so important. I'm very of the school of like, if you're not intentional with what you're doing and the decisions you're making, like I don't see the point. And I know that that's our world now. Like people are just like, it looks fine, shoot it. You know, they're just not, you know, I don't know. I just feel like you want to mean everything that you do because you are putting yourself into it. I used to think I'm not putting myself into it. I'm just the DP. I'm just like shooting someone else's story, but like you are putting yourself into it. You are, you know, you're putting your who you are and your creative decisions, and you know, you show in your work. So I think you should, you know, try to test and really. I also feel like if you're not prepping and testing, you must not really love your craft, because I feel like, you know, loving your craft, it comes with like wanting to know these things and wanting to learn, you know, and wanting to care about the things you're using.
Yeah, that's true. And you learn so much from testing.
Yeah. And then, you know, for the future, you're building up your, you know, knowledge and your arsenal of tools.
And requires time. So that means, yeah, you're right on that. You know, instead of shooting just every project that comes around, you can be testing for when the right project comes around.
Yeah.
We have all your crew here. Julia, Carlos is here. Hi, Carlos. Do a bit of shout out for Shara Romani. Thanks for joining.
Carlos pulled on every single project that I have as an example.
Yeah.
So that's why it looks so beautiful.
And then once you get a relationship with a camera assistant and they know exactly what you want, you know, and with time, even the rental house knows exactly what you want. And then they're like, oh, it's Julia. I'd rather get that follow focus that her camera assistant loves. And so it's important to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon.
Is your assistant pulling focus manually, or is he using electronic focus devices?
He's using electronic, like wireless focus, but he's really stellar at manual. We had a music video that was really tiny, and I had hired an assistant who I'd never had. This is why prep is important. She didn't prep the package, and the wireless focus didn't end up working on the day, and this was like a half-day shoot. And I'm freaking out internally because I need to shoot this thing, and it's handheld and it's all over the place, and I need you to have wireless focus, and it didn't work. And Carlos actually ended up coming to the shoot for some other reason to give me something he borrowed. And he was like, screw it. And he threw on the FF4 and he pulled, and we like danced together through the room, and it was amazing. And I was like, this is the sign of a true stellar first AC who was like, you know, we can solve this. And he was able to pull with, you know, just running around with me like crazy. So prep your project.
Yeah,
Now, when things do open up again, there's going to be a lot more remote control of the camera than a SAST assistant standing next to it and operating that way.
Yeah.
True. That's true. I mean, yeah, rarely, I mean, most of our jobs, they don't even ask for manual anymore, which I'm like, are you sure? Like, what if something happens? You know, you don't want to like just safety.
Yeah, you always want it as a backup at least.
Yeah.
So.
Things change so much. It's crazy. In 10 years, right? 10 years. Let's see if we have any other questions before we wrap. Oh, it's almost, there's many more questions here.
What is something you'd like to shoot next? Do you have a dream scenario?
Yeah, that was the epic. That's the
Okay.
period piece. Period piece.
Gotcha.
TV show.
Is looking into making full frame zooms? I don't think so, but I'll let Eric respond. Ingrid is asking that. I mean, Cooke is still working on making the zoom, the anamorphic zoom, right? But it's not full frame.
Optics companies tend to specialize in either primes or zooms. If you take a look at the landscape, you'll start to see that if you haven't noticed it. And they're just two totally different mechanical devices. Cooke has made lenses in the past, and people would love us to remake the 18-100, which isn't going to happen anytime soon. And there's been a number of requests for new zoom lenses. The reason that we have two, the 35-140 and the 45-450, was our desire to have a complete anamorphic program. If it wasn't for that desire, we probably wouldn't have built those two zoom lenses. We would have just stuck with anamorphic primes. We are so busy right now with all the prime lens sets, we couldn't even think about introducing a spherical zoom right now. Not to say that it won't be done in the future. And if we did introduce it, I would destined to say it probably would cover full frame. It would just make sense the way things are going, but nothing that I've seen has anything on the boards for full frame zooms. The next zoom that's going to be finished is the 10 times anamorphic 45-450, and there's a reason why it's going to be the world's first 10-to-1 anamorphic zoom, because it's almost impossible to build.
We're excited to see the project come to life, Eric. Definitely. Oh, there's a lighting question here, which is interesting. If Julia, do you carry the same lighting principles you learned shooting on film to digital, or do you rely more on monitors, waveforms when acquiring digitally?
I'm a huge false color person on digital. And sometimes my assistants will do they'll put a piece of tape on the viewfinder of the 416 or the Millennium that has a fake false color button, because I'm always pretending to push it, or like, I don't know, I'm always like, where's my false color on film? So on digital, I'm a huge false color person. I still meter, I still spot read, things like that. And then film, I'm metering still, probably a little more, obviously. And film is interesting. I feel like I have a little more faith, actually. It's always there. If I feel like it's really hot or it's over, it's there. Like, I don't know. I'm like, it never disappoints me.
Yeah. That's interesting, because in digital, you're seeing the image on set, but like, it's really hard to actually see the actual image, right? Like, you rely on a DAT, and
yeah,
that's
another reason why the LUTs are so important to me too, to really see like what I'm trying to go for.
Yeah, what you're trying to get,
and where the blacks are going and where the highlights are going and all that stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
What are your favorite film cameras to shoot? I think I heard 416 in there.
I like the 416. Still love the SR3. And I love, for 35, I use the Millennium XL2 a lot. This is a beast, and I do handheld with it. And I'm actually prepping a movie that's going to be on that camera, and it's going to be a lot of handheld. So yeah, I think, but I've used the Gold 2, Panavision's Gold 2. I haven't used any Arri for 35. I'd be really interested to do that though.
Cool. All right.
I know Bianca was excited when we had put together, I think it was a 435, and we put the 45-450 zoom on a Fisher dolly at Cine Gear last year. A number of people hadn't had the opportunity to look through a film camera in a long time, so they're pretty excited about that.
That's cool. I've actually taught a workshop on 16 where a lot of the students were didn't care. They were younger, and they're like, whatever, it's film. And I'm like, you don't understand how cool this opportunity is. The school was paying for it, and they were just like, whatever. They're just not impressed. And it made me really sad.
The feeling of looking through that film camera viewfinder is completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess people don't get
When I used to teach 35 millimeter filmmaking, I would shoot the, I guess the behind the scenes, you would call it, in black and white reversal Super 8. And it never ceased to amaze me all the students that would get so excited about a black and white reversal Super 8. And I'm like, we're here shooting 35. Like,
Right. Yeah. It's so different,
I
though.
still see them running around the shows with the Super 8 cameras. So it's interesting format.
I have a bunch of little Super 8 cameras that I've never used. I need to like take them for a spin.
Yeah, take them for some fun. So Julia, if people want to know more about your work, your website is juliaswain.com.
.net.
.net. juliaswain.net. So I can write here, swain.net. Oh, and a quick last question from myself. So you are with an agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how long ago did that happen? Like how, from after coming out of film school, how did that happen? How did you get an agent?
I got an agent in mid 2018 with WPA. And it's funny, I'd been feeling really ready for an agent, financially, and also just I was ready to get in bigger rooms and have that representation. And so I'd been trying, I had DPs championing me with other agencies, and I was starting to take some general meetings, not expecting anything, just wanting to know more. And while that was happening, a producer on a movie I'd shot was at WPA, and I don't think I even knew that at the time, but they had seen my stuff, and this other producer from my very first feature also had shown someone my stuff there, and they reached out, and I wasn't expecting anything, and it's a joke because I was like totally underdressed, like for the meeting. I was like, we're having coffee, like whatever. I'm just Julia. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm like, and we signed, and it was amazing. And I felt like an idiot because I was like in a t-shirt and, just like casual thing. But yeah, and it's been wonderful. I really love them. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, there's always the right time. I feel like some people are very anxious to get an agent, but I feel like there's always the right time, and the time will come.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks everyone for coming. And if you have any questions, I think you can find Julia also on Instagram, right, Julia?
Yes.
And Eric and myself. So we love getting feedback from our talks. And if you are all interested in knowing anything else, please let me know, and then I'll try and organize more talks here. So thanks everyone. Have a great Friday and a great weekend. If you are in California, keep cool because it's very hot.
It's still snowing in New York, in case you were wondering.
It's in.
So I wish I was in California right now.
Well, I wish I was in New York. So even on the snow, but in the 40-degree, whatever you've got over there.
Yeah.
It's about time for spring, let me tell you. But thank you, Bianca, and thank you, Julia. Great, great work. We really appreciate your time and everything that you do for the filmmaking community. And as I always say, if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be here. So really, from the bottom of our heart and everyone at Cooke, thank you.
Thank you. And next week, more new work, right, Julia, that you shot on the Cooke SF?
Yeah, there's a really, really cool Iconopop video. It's probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, music videos I've ever done, and it's on the Cooke SFs, and I think it's so different, and it shows how wonderfully the SFs capture color and look. So look out for that. It's on the 30th, I think, in a week.
Great. We'll shout out on our Instagram so everyone can see it.
We'll have to keep an eye out for that. When is it debuting?
April 30th, which I think is next Thursday.
Yeah, a couple of days from now.
Very fun.
Good.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. We got Les was here. I just saw now. Les, the chairman of Cooke. Carrie from Kerner Camera. Hi, Carrie. So many people.
Have Michael call me, please.
Domain is here. Tommy G, VB, everyone, thanks so much for being here. It's really, I'm not officially seeing you all, but it's like I am. So feel virtual hug.
And please reach out to us because we're all around. We have time.
Yes.
Let's talk cinematography.
yes, let's keep the cinematography vein going. And you know, it's not an easy time, especially I feel like for the people who just like graduated and were ready to like get out there, and now they're like,
That's who I'm concerned the most about. They got to go look for work now, and there's no work to get. So
yeah. So let's all stay together. We're all in this together, even if you're just starting out or ahead. But yes, I do feel for the people that just graduated. I just want you to know that we're really totally here for you, and we're gonna help you in one way or the other.
and hopefully we're all back on set very soon.
Yes, sounds good. Thanks, Julia. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a nice weekend.
You too. Bye.